Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Kathleen Morrison. Kathleen is a second-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2025, and she and I recently connected to talk more about her background, her decision to pursue an MBA, what led her to Darden, the impact of the program thus far, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this episode is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the ExecMBA podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Kathleen Morrison. Kathleen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Brett. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here. How is everything going? How are you doing?
Oh, it's going really well. Weather's beautiful. I am super. We're starting electives, so a lot of excitement in my cohort right now. Lots to look forward to.
Yeah, there's several milestones in that sort of first year for the Executive MBA students, right? Oh, you complete LR1, you finish your first quarter, you finish your first semester, you're halfway through the program, you complete the core, which is where you are. You completed the core, and now you're into electives. Yet another milestone. Lots of reasons to celebrate. How does it feel to be choosing your classes now?
Oh, I mentioned this to you right before we went live. It's the burden of choice. I like all the options and I'm not allowed to take them all. So for the first time ever, I'm having to be selective and everything's exciting. So you're like, well, I can't take everything simultaneously. I'm really happy though. They gave us enough advance notice and lots of interaction with the professors to kind of understand what the electives were about. And I think everybody ended up with exactly the schedule they wanted. It's magic when that happens, but we're looking forward to it. Everyone I've talked to says it's about to be kind of their favorite part of the year.
Yeah, you have 40 classes typically to choose from in that elective period, typically 10 electives offered per quarter. Students take 12 electives in the Executive MBA program. So to your point, you can't take all the electives that are offered. You have to make some choices. You have more scheduled choice in the elective period than you had in the core classes. You have weekend residencies. You have class every Friday, Saturday, Sunday on those weekend residencies. You have distance classes Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Get to the elective period. All of a sudden, distance classes could be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You could have an elective that meets only on Fridays. You could have an elective that meets on Saturday, Sunday mornings, elective that meets Saturday and Sunday afternoons. You could have an asynchronous elective. You have independent study. You could actually get ahead on your credits through maybe a J-term elective, global residency, and you have a lighter quarter in one of those elective quarters. So a lot of choose your own adventure.
I think that's very true. I've signed up for all sorts of different elective formats. I know I'm in an async format with the part-time students because I really liked the professor and the subject matter. So, we'll see how it goes. And if I'm very, very lucky, the team that we've kind of self-organized will be selected for a global consulting project. So that's a whole different format entirely. But it remains to be seen. Still have to apply.
Yeah, those are an additional global experience that you can have. Hopefully our listeners who've been looking at the Executive MBA program, you know that there's a required global experience, what's called a global residency. Our GAMBA format students actually do 4 global residencies. EMBA format students just required to do 1 global residency. It's a week-long course that goes to any number of 8 to 10 locations typically for an Executive MBA class. Typically the locations span all the major continents. And you also have these other opportunities, the Global Client Project, which is a consulting project where you work with a real live company somewhere out there in the world. You have to apply for it. As Kathleen notes, you have to be selected for it. And if you get selected, typically you get to visit the company, spend a week or 2 there on location, and the company will oftentimes pay for your travel to that location. So it has some perks.
It's really exciting. I know a lot of the students in the program have kind of talked about, you look at the list of projects and they're impactful, but they're all over the place with all sorts of different companies and different industries. So it's an enthusiastic group who are kind of pursuing them. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, when people have one global experience in this program, they want to find a way to have more global experiences. And also maybe you feel like here you are, second year of the program, graduation's in view. How do you pack it all in before May rolls around and you've got to call it quits for your MBA program, you graduate?
Oh, don't jinx it. We'll never end. We'll do this forever. um, yeah, I think that's part of it. I think also I was lucky. I heard about the Global Client Project actually on my first global residency in India, which was just life-changing, like phenomenal experience. The faculty lead, Mark, was there and so interesting, so cool. And then the group of us who went, it was a relatively small group, so we became really tight. And so I think it was kind of the perfect time to go, okay, there's more of this. And to be able to speak with the executive leaders at really senior companies, like we spend hours with the C-suite at Flipkart, which is huge in India. And to say, wow, I could do this in a relevant format that actually provides value and lets me stick with a company long term. Um, you're right. It's once you're in a global project, you go, I could add more of this. It's one exciting to have the opportunity in the EMBA program because you never get something like it for the rest of your life.
Well, Kathleen, before we talk any more about curricular opportunities and experiences here at Darden, let's talk about you. So, tell us a bit more about you and your background.
Okay, yeah, I am in the Northern Virginia area. I've grown up here, spent forever here. So I actually went to school at a small state school in West Virginia and studied English and education. I was going to be a high school teacher and still love English, love reading, but I fell in love with my best friend who was in the military. So ended up changing plans and kind of moved where he moved for a while. And now we've been married going on 10 years. I've got two kids. I've worked through a handful of service industries in different leadership roles. So hospitality, healthcare, and now I'm in the beauty industry. So I am director of operations for a subsidiary company, which is a distributor of professional beauty products in the area. And I was with this company for years, and they recently were acquired by a parent company, a global parent company. So lots of transitions, lots of new projects, and it's been an experience, but it's been the perfect experience to pair with the EMBA program. So I'm really glad I was able to do this and that because I think each has made me better at the other.
Is the beauty industry super competitive? Tell us a little bit about this industry, like high level for folks who don't know much about it.
Yeah, it's fast moving consumer products. So it's funny, it's a relationships industry, it's a legacy industry. There are people, they'll all treat you like you're equal. I think that's a really unique aspect of the industry I've found. In distribution networks, everybody has pre-existing relationships that go back maybe decades. So it's small companies with defined territories and defined specialties. Um, it's not an MBA industry, which is an interesting choice, right? Some of the smartest, most talented business owners I've met running companies really successfully without a lot of formal business education. So it's been really fun to see coming from that and going, wow, it's I would say it's a very quickly changing industry because consumer trends change so much, and especially post-COVID, obviously there's been marketplace and commerce shifts to try and apply the business education and the strategy that Darden teaches you in that super highly changing industry has been eye-opening, has been really it's been fun. I should say that, right? It has been fun.
Well, it's interesting to hear you talk about the industry and that, a lot of the leaders in this industry do not have formal business training, do not have MBAs, and yet you decided to pursue an MBA. How did you make that decision?
Wow, I might be the only MBA I know before I came to Darden. Yeah, so it's really unusual, kind of in the circles I've run in. Um, and don't, I don't know what really tipped me over the edge. I think it's kind of this background idea. Post college, I told myself I was never going back to school again because homework was really hard. I really like work. I find like I get really absorbed in my work. I'm a workaholic, but I remember just really struggling with school and the school format with assignments and deliverables for some reason was so challenging for me, different than like the practical hands-on, really influential work I was doing in the office. And then I went through really interesting growth experience at my company because it started as a very small company and I started entry level. And as the company grew, a lot of us grew with it and took on more. And I saw every part of the business. I ended up really working very closely with the founder, who's become a personal mentor of mine. And I think she was really, really motivational, saw a lot of potential and made a point of saying so, and said, this is an experience a lot of people don't have because you have now learned, by nature of being here, you have learned so much about what it's like to run a company. And I think you should consider business education. Um, and she doesn't have an MBA, so I think that was her really looking out for me and going, it's an opportunity. Put it in the back of my mind. And then it's funny, they sold the company and I got scared. And I don't know if this is relatable for other listeners, but I had really taken for granted a lot of security where I worked. And I felt really happy and then worried about, with new leadership in place, what was going to happen. And I had all these skills, but on paper, nothing to represent what I was capable of. And so I felt like it was the right time for me to go to school and maybe I should go get an MBA. So started looking around at programs, and like I told you, I really struggled with college in my undergrad. Some grades were A plus and some were just like really hard to get through. And so I found a program I felt was a format that was really unique. And I got really excited about Darden. And so I decided to apply to Darden, not to get my MBA, but because if I could go to Darden, I felt like I could do school in a way that I would love. And so it was this or nothing for me. It wasn't a decision about like, I'm going to get my MBA. It was a decision about, I want to go to this program and get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Makes sense. And, it resonates with a lot of what we hear from students as they're looking at going back to school across all of our programs. I think it's pretty common for people to say after they finish undergrad, I don't think I'm going to do any more school. I think I've done all my school. And then at some point they come to the realization that maybe they haven't done all their school. And then they have to look around and figure out what the next thing is. And that might take a while. Honestly, it might take a few years to really think about it and settle on a program and then take the step of actually applying, which honestly, I think for a lot of people can feel pretty intimidating, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable in that way. But, I also think that experience of just thinking and reflecting and ultimately realizing that this is the step. I mean, there's so much value in that. And then taking the leap and applying and the clarity that you get through that process of where you want to go, why you want to go in that direction, all the questions that you're asked through the application process, even if it doesn't work out, I still think you come out of the process with a much clearer sense of who you are and what you want to do. And that does have value.
Definitely agree with that. And I think, to add on to that, once I became kind of concrete on where my plan was, I went really deep on the research, like fanatically deep, right? I was in like third level years ago forums on the internet where corporate recruiters were talking about why Darden is different from other schools. It's like, well, when we go to recruiting and hiring events at Darden, the students just are nicer. They help each other more. They give each other advice after interviews. Like, I messed this up. You should try that instead. It's the most collaborative environment from a recruiter's perspective. So then I had this whole picture in my head built up. It was like, it's time to talk to my partner. I should tell him I want to try it. But even had I not applied, I think kind of understanding what my values were to say, wow, I connect with something that says it's a collaborative environment. I connect with something that says that people take care of each other, teaches me a lot about myself. And I assume a lot of other students are finding the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, as you approach this process, I think you have to think about what's important to you. And it's great to do all that research. I think sometimes people can get a little lost in the research because they start listening to a lot of other people's opinions and they can sometimes forget what really matters to them, what they're looking for in an environment, what it means for them, what is necessary for them to feel supported and to be in a place where they feel like they can really thrive. I think if you start with that as your perspective and say, here are the things that I'm looking for in a program, and then get into your research, I think that can be really helpful because there's no shortage of opinions on what you should do, where you should go, why you shouldn't go some other place. You can really get lost in a lot of that.
Sometimes it helps to hear contradictory opinions, but I think also you have to, at the end of the day, say, this one speaks to me, right? none of them is more empirically right than the other. If they all have value, it helps you understand how to see the whole picture. And then, like you said, know yourself, be authentic, know what you want out of it, pick something that aligns with your values.
So Kathleen, you come to Darden. We were having this conversation. You're about a year into the program at this point, actually, in Q7, which is more than a year into the program. Can you remember back what those first quarters were like as you were adjusting to life as an executive MBA student?
They were so exciting, so exhilarating. I think, you get to school, you're worried, and then you're in school and you're just elated. It's so cool to sit in the classroom, really engage with material that is some of the most challenging and yet relevant. Like, you're using it next week. You're going back to work and you're solving these problems in your own office, but you get to hear 125 of the smartest people in the area grasp with this and really dissect it and discuss, like we were just saying about opposite opinions, like I remember in the first months I was in class, I would hear people argue with each other and they were both right. But there's nowhere in the world I've found where I can hear two really brilliant, ethical, responsible leaders with correct opinions on opposite sides of an issue. And that helps me frame and learn. And then I can go back to work and I'm more prepared, more capable, more motivated to handle it. So it, I didn't know what I was getting into, maybe. Like I thought it would be a lot of schoolwork, and I didn't realize how much the relationships and how much of the learning would come through the people in class with me. So I remember the first few months being really intimidated and overwhelmed because the backgrounds of the people that come to Darden are just unbelievable. And they're your peers, right? You go, wow, when in the world would I have an opportunity to just have a casual conversation with this person, much less dinner, and then we're going out to the bars at night before we go back to the hotel. Like it's it's an extraordinary community. And then I think somewhere 3 or 4 months in, you kind of curve over the stress point and you've all gotten to know each other more and you all really like each other like a lot. That has seemed to be consistently true. Everyone in the program seems to feel that way. So about second quarter is where we start going, okay, I'm really looking forward to these weekends, not just because I want the class experience, but because I miss my friends. Like I want to go back and hang out with you more.
I love that point. So would you say it's about 3 or 4 months into the program you started to feel maybe a little bit more settled? You felt like, and you mentioned being intimidated, maybe initially, some of the people in the room. Was there a point where you felt like I can hang here? I have a perspective to offer. I can add value to these conversations. When did that happen for you?
Oh, I've been really fortunate. I think people are really encouraging, and several people along the way have made a point of coming over, even in between classes or in the evenings. And they go, I just wanted to have a conversation with you and let you know how glad I am you're here, how much you bring to the table. And um, a couple times when you're just blown away because this person is like, Goliath size in your head. And they're like, I'm really glad that I get to learn with you. So it starts to make you see yourself a different way. I've, I think, evolved a lot as a leader and developed maybe more confidence and introspection on what I bring to the table, what I offer that's unique. And that's allowed me then to thrive at work and at home and say, I am responsible in this way, but also valuable. I'm able to provide and lean in and support in this way. So, I think that's a natural progression probably most students will experience is from talking to people, they use the word imposter syndrome a lot. I think intimidation is very common, but I also think along the way, we've all kind of realized everyone in the room is adding something you can't get anywhere else, right? Everyone else is adding something unique to them that makes it more valuable as a whole.
I think that's 100% true. And I will say, when we think, people ask us all the time how we think about putting the class together. And we are really thinking about that classroom conversation. We're going to think about also how you show up on a learning team, how you show up outside of class, really these many different phases of the Darden experience. And we want people to be great classmates and really excited about both contributing to the conversation and also learning from others. Being open to other people's perspectives is a big part of it. We want people to be the kind of classmates, teammates that help each other and that share their expertise, but also are not afraid to ask for help. I think that's also part of this process. And the community that we have in the Executive MBA program, it really boils down to the intention of the students, right? You could be really busy doing a working professional program and gosh, I don't think I have time to do clubs or organizations or be involved in a leadership role or any of that. That is not the culture that we have here at Darden. We attract people who want to be active participants in their program, in and outside the classroom. And those are the things that are really on our mind. I mean, certainly we want to make sure that people can be successful academically and do the work, et cetera. I mean, that's important. But there's so many other things that are touch on these kind of interpersonal dimensions that you're discussing here. And we try to have as much difference as possible in the classroom too. And think about the case method. The more difference, the more differing perspectives, experiences, the richer that conversation is going to be.
You didn't add the fact that you're a wizard. That's a critical element to assembling the learning teams. We have a lot of conversations about you when you're not around, Brett. We're like, how did he do it? This is unbelievable. He's paired all the perfect people together. My learning team is easily one of the best parts of my school experience. I have been so fortunate with them. So credit to you, thanks. But also, I didn't. I was remiss. I should have mentioned the first several months. One of the things I grappled with, besides maybe imposter syndrome, was time management. And I think a lot of people do that. I think coming in and going, I'm going to do great. I'm going to do it all. I'm going to do great here and at work and at home. Presents before her birthday every year, and I'll never miss one. And at a certain point, it's like cracks start to show. And Ben on my learning team had his sit down with me. He's like, you are reading every case, every time. You're showing up for your kids. You're a great mom. You're still, you're being promoted at work. You're bringing 100% everywhere. You need to just pick one and take a breather, right? And if it's school, we're here for you. Like, we're all sharing the load. There's a team for a reason because you can't get through the program alone. You have to trust people to cover your back a little bit and coach you on the stuff you don't get and, carry each other a little bit. You've helped us. Take a break. Let us help you recalibrate. So it's been instrumental. I think after some of those conversations about time management as well and learning how to work with teammates and share the load has also changed my school experience a lot because I've become a much better learner, really able to focus on what I'm great at and then dig really deep where I need the help.
And we talk about that realization that you can't be 100% in every direction while you're in this program. And I think that's a really challenging thing for people psychologically, because I think we have all these ideas about how we have to operate and how we have to show up. And it can feel threatening. It can feel uncomfortable. It can cause anxiety, right? If you change, what happens? You drop the ball on something. What was that conversation with your teammate like? How did you eventually get to this point where you've embraced it? I mean, was there a journey? Was there an arc there?
I think so. I think, you know, Sisyphus like pushes the rock up the hill and then he slips back several feet and just tries over. And at a certain point, you're like, the laundry is my rock, dude. Like, I've got to stop washing clothes someday. Or, we're on paper plates and you make small concessions, but I really came to terms with like, I'm not willing not to do what I'm responsible for at work. I feel very motivated by the fact that I care about these people and they rely on me and vice versa. I have a team there that needs me to show up and be my best. And most importantly, I have a partner and I have kids that is a non-negotiable. I will not concede a certain amount of time, quality time. I'm still their mom and they need to know that they're the most important thing in the world. And so then I was sitting there, it was like 4 a.m. and I'm reading more cases. And Ben has insomnia. So he was the perfect person to say, like, why are you awake? You probably need a nap. like maybe about a 3 month nap, and just get your schedule together. But he wasn't wrong. And I think the team as a whole was kind of having conversations along those lines anyway, right? We worked together for months at that point, and we had really quickly figured out we're each rock stars at something. Like you've interviewed one of my other team members, Chris Mai, so you'll see his episode. I bet it's not published, but it'll probably come out. I wonder if he said similar things because he's a rock star in his own right. He independently keeps us all on schedule, all organized. His strategy is unbelievable. But you get people like that on a team, and it becomes easier once you know each other's strengths to kind of say how we can divvy this up and get through it together. So it was the right time for the conversation. I'll say that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a conversation most executive MBA students have and continue to have as they go through the program. I mean, it's a continuous sort of, okay, where am I now in life, at work, at school? Maybe things get a little bit different as you get into the electives and you're picking your classes and kind of choosing a schedule too. But, work and life are not static things as you go through this program. Things will continue to bubble up. And I think it's one of the reasons why we emphasize the fact that this is not a solitary endeavor. This is a team sport. It's a team sport at home, it's a team sport at work, and it's a team sport at school.
Yeah, and then there's a practical reality that there's some rubber banding, right? Like, you lean in too hard at one thing and then you ease off a bit and lean in too hard at the other and ease off a bit. But I feel really good about where I'm at now. So knock on some wood for me. I am finally balanced. Everybody's happy. My husband and I just spent a week off with the kids and road tripped across the country because we had exam week at school. So I lined up the PTO so we could do exams in the car on the go. I was like, this is going to be great. Definitely no problems. But it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I think if you can just be proactive and maybe cognizant of all the challenges, once you've gotten the rhythm, it becomes much easier to balance. I have felt really good. I think it'll stick through electives. Cross your fingers for me.
I have full faith that's going to be the case, Kathleen. Anybody who can take exams while on a road trip I think you can do about anything. And I will say that's not uncommon. We hear plenty of executive MBA students talking about taking exams from a vacation or on a plane or in transit. I mean, it happens. I mean, you have to figure out how to make all these things coexist, but you have lots of different examples out of your class. You have lots of good people to talk about this with. I think the most important thing a student can do as you come into the program, as you are sort of grappling with this, is not keep it to yourself. You got to talk to other people about it, right? Because everybody's having the same challenge, right? Some people's lives are more complicated than others. You always can look left and right. Somebody has less, somebody has more going on than you. But this is a perennial challenge for any executive MBA student. How do you figure out how to make all these things coexist?
That's 100% true. And I would add that it's not just time management that people in class have become key resources to discuss. I think there's people in the program, you develop individual friendships on a lot of different bases. And there's people I will talk to every time I see them. We'll exchange parenting advice. And then there's people, Darden did a great PAC course in J-term, which paired us up in small groups around careers. And some of the people in those groups were very vulnerable, but on a leadership level, here are disciplinary challenges I'm having at work. Here are transitional issues I'm managing. So you are able to discuss with each other in a real relevant sense and then bring your own problems back to the table and get insight you would never have had otherwise. And then to be able to go back to those people months later and be like, how did it go with that person? And did you make the right choice? Do you regret it? What did you learn? What do you think I should do about this new thing I have? I think there's a network of peers that has become really indispensable in some ways. There are resources I probably will still call years from now and be like, you remember when you dealt with that? What should I do here?
Yeah, this is just because you graduate does not mean that you have to stop having these conversations. These are long-lasting connections. Darden has a 1-year reunion. People come back for that. People are really excited to be back in Charlottesville for that. But there's lots of other ways that students stay connected. It's always fun to see on LinkedIn people catching up in this city or that city, or I traveled here and ran into this person. It's not just the formal Darden event. So, Kathleen, a couple questions for you as we wrap up. Uh, you're about a year into the program now. What do you see as the impact of your time here at Darden?
Yeah, in a practical sense, I've been able to change how I work and how I present myself at work. I actually add value in new ways at work. And so, in a career sense, I mean, I'm in a position I would never otherwise have qualified for, and I feel like I'm doing well in it too, which is a great feeling to know that, I'm contributing and I am bringing something to the table that's moving us along on our goals. In a personal sense, I think I felt it was really interesting in LR1. I remember the word that stuck in my mind every time they'd ask prior students, what has this program been like for you? Everyone said transformative. And I was like, okay, I hope that's positive. And it was, you know. Um, it is transformative personally. We've talked some about maybe learning what I uniquely bring to the table and learning strengths, stuff I never thought I could grapple with. I've never had a formal economics class in my life, and I love learning that subject matter, at least in case study method. It's really interesting to kind of say behind the scenes and have discussions around how it applies. How is the world working? It's like peeling back the curtain a bit. Um, which to be able to walk through the universe and say, I can see what is happening now and why that company is making those choices and why this policy is being enacted federally. And I'm sure other people have some of those insights, but in a general management format, I have loved learning across the board more than I ever imagined. And also being able to kind of say, what does it mean for me? What are my values? What do I aim to do with this? It's a good time for introspection, and it's a program built around purposeful intent. So having to grapple with not just being a passenger in my life, um, starting to be proactive, take initiative. Where do I want to go? How am I going to set myself up to get there? So, yeah, I would say work wise, personally, academically, transformative across the board.
So, Kathleen, a somewhat related question. What's your favorite memory from the program?
I don't know. I want to say India. I really enjoyed the academic experiences, but then also just middle of the night conversations with peers and to be able to get to know them in a personal level in a format like that was just incredible. The culture and to be able to see the culture and through the perspective of people who've lived there, who can explain to you, here's how we see ourselves, and here's where we think we're going on the world stage, and here's why. Um, there's just a huge amount of respect for how that program was designed. So favorite memories there, but so fun. Like, the hotel, you put us all up in a hotel at the weekends. Everybody stays at the same hotel. And so there's always favorite memories when we're being very responsible. So don't tell the professors, but it's 1 a.m. We've all come back to the hotel. You all run into each other in the lobby. It's like this informal gathering place, right? So everybody sees your friends. They all come over. Someone's got French fries and they're sharing French fries every time. That's the good part, right?
Yeah, I think when people think about an executive MBA program, I think about just the conversations I've had. People think a lot about class. They think about a lot about the time commitment. I don't think they think about the social component as much, or think that that might not necessarily be something that they would get to experience as an executive MBA student. Because I think sometimes when people talk about MBA programs, they make it seem like you have to do a full-time MBA program to have a community. I think Darden's executive MBA program would, I guess, propose a counter opinion to that, that you can have a community executive MBA program that, to your point, it's about purpose, it's about intention.
It is, you get out of it what you put in, right? But really quickly, I heard from a lot of people. We had active conversations around, I thought I was coming for a degree and I thought I was coming for an academic experience, and I'm getting that. And I've learned that the resource that's most beneficial to me is the people and the relationships. And that's enjoyable too. So it is a two for one deal, but Darden has done it. I don't know how you do, but it has done an extraordinary job building. You can see an intentional community design, right? You can see that it's made for those of us who are open to it. If you're open to it, if you're willing to be around, I mean, I think I shared with you another conversation. I have been much more of an introvert. I am friendly, I would say, but it is, it takes energy to convince myself I can do this, and get past insecurity to have, I've just been through class. Should I go down? Should I hang out? And I made the choice several times early on, just do. And oh my God, I don't regret it at all. So I would tell people if you're if you're on the fence, if you find, well, I'm not really here for the social aspect, totally fine, but go along. Just be out there, participate enough that if you want it, you will find some friendships are really extraordinary that you never thought you'd have. I got called Miss Socialite not long ago at a weekend. It was like, that's a night and day difference, but it shows you how far it's come because people really, really look forward to seeing each other and it's fun to hang out.
Well, Kathleen, last question for you here. What's a piece of advice you would share with our listeners? Obviously, we've touched on a lot of topics here, a lot of advice thus far, but any sort of final piece of advice you would encourage people to think about?
Mm. I think prospective students, and I may be speaking just to a niche audience here, but if I am, for the ones that this applies to, if you're not sure if you're the right applicant, apply anyway, right? And that might have applied to me, is I don't have a very traditional MBA background. I'm not in an MBA industry. There's a lot of reasons. Yeah, I wasn't sure that you would let me in. And I'm lucky, I will say, to be here. But I think also, like you said, just the process of applying is valuable. And at the same time, I've been really impressed with how much you guys build diversity in the cohort and are very selective with choosing a community of different opinions and different backgrounds. That adds a lot to the program. So I would really hope that if someone goes, but I'm not the typical student, right? That's why we need you. That would be my pitch.
Yeah, I love that point. I think oftentimes applicants are worried about what makes them different than the other people applying to MBA programs or the people they think are applying to MBA programs, I should say that. I would actually encourage people to think about that difference as a real strength. We are trying to have as much difference as possible in our classrooms. We don't want people all from the same background, all with the same perspective. We want people to bring lots of different talents and skills, abilities, experiences, perspectives to those discussions because it will make a much richer learning experience. It'll make a much richer and more vibrant community. So, yeah, I'm always struck when people are nervous that they don't have the right academic background or the right professional background. There's so many different people, different kinds of people who can be successful here. I appreciate your advice. I just encourage them to take the leap.
Yeah, and if you're not sure, right, there are so many opportunities Darden puts out there to learn more. I think in a way it's an unconventional classroom experience, and so it suits an unconventional student body. And a conventional one, of course, right? Like Darden is an unbelievable, peerless, top-ranked program in the MBA universe. But its case method may appeal to people who are really more practical hands-on learners, who have very different lived experiences, and then can apply that material in the classroom in novel ways, which helps us all learn. So I would just say if you're not sure, if you're on the fence, if you don't know if you can hang, try a class, come attend, talk to an alumni, reach out to someone in the Darden network. Reach out to, I'm going to put you on spot here, Brett, but reach out to Brett. Like, the more people, the better.
I'll gladly take an email from anybody who has those concerns. I mean, we spend most of our time talking to prospective students about that very thing. And I do think participating in a virtual mock class or coming for a class visit just maybe testing some of these ideas or conceptions that you have about an MBA program and who does an MBA program. I think you'd find the more people you meet, the more you engage with the program, the more different it is than what you might expect or some of these ideas people build up in their mind. I agree with your point about case method being perhaps a more engaging way for people to learn. If you've decided that you didn't like school or a particular version of school, or you thought about something as more didactic or lecture based, that's not going to be the experience here. It's going to be very focused on practical application and how do managers and leaders make these decisions and why do they make them. And it's going to feel very much like something you know how to do something. You have this context from class, you've practiced there, very easy to figure out how to use it at work. It's not abstract, it's not ivory tower. That's not really what the Darden classroom is about. And I think that can be really energizing to people who may have felt maybe a little bit missed in some of that more transmissive learning experience.
Yeah, so fingers crossed, there's cohort every year, but prospective students, I would encourage you to join one of them. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you necessarily need more advice, but for students who are admitted, who are starting, I think you've got a group going through LR1 right now, right? So this year's cohort very soon will be featured on the podcast, round of students doing interviews, and lean in, right? But be open to it changing in ways you never expected to change. So, I'm on a different work path than I thought I would be on. I have different relationships and friendships than I expected to have, and I am more fortunate in every aspect. So, just see how it goes.
Well, Kathleen, thank you so much for your honesty and for your candor here on the podcast. It's always great to talk with you, and best of luck in quarter 7 as you start taking electives.
Thank you so much, Brett. It's always good to hang out. Talk to you soon.
And that was my conversation with Kathleen Morrison, a second-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2025. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXEC, MBA@darden.virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.